Hey everyone, good afternoon, good morning. Thanks for joining today for another exciting episode of FNSCM in Focus. Couple of housekeeping things before we get started here. There will be a copy of the recording available after the event through the event link. We will take some time for questions and comments throughout the session. There should be a Q&A box or a chat available to you. And then we always love feedback, so please let us know after the event or anytime throughout the webinar if you have any feedback about things that you'd like to see or things that could maybe go better next time. For those of you who didn't join last time or who don't know me, my name is Joe Tews. I'm a pre-sales architect here at Stone Ridge Software. I've been in the Dynamics community now for a little over 18 years. I started way back on Dynamics GP, and then I transitioned over to Microsoft. I did 5 years of support for Dynamics AX, and then I've also spent 5 years doing solution architecting for large enterprise customers for Microsoft. And I joined Stone Ridge about 2.5 years ago now. Came over to start doing support, and then I transitioned over into the pre-sales role. So, housekeeping out of the way, let's get to the main content that you're all here to talk about today. Actually, before I get to that, I did just want to do one last bit of housekeeping. I made this slide deck, so of course I don't even remember what I did, but just wanted to give you a little bit of background on this series. So if you didn't join us last time, we are working on and putting together a series to highlight new or maybe some existing functionality within D365 Finance and Supply Chain Management. We're going to do a new topic each month, and it may not necessarily be related to Copilot or AI. There is a lot of information out there on Copilot and AI, and we wanted to kind of tailor this towards just some of the general FNSCM topics. But with that, if there is anything particularly that you would like to learn about or discuss in a future episode of this, please let us know. We love suggestions and where we're going to go with this series. So with that, now let's talk about feature management. And really the main focus of this and the main reason I wanted to get this topic out there is Wave 2 is here. Coincidentally enough, on October 1st begins Wave 2 for D365 and actually for all of the products. And I will put a plug in now. Bree will also send a link out later, but we are doing kind of what our new favorite features are that are coming in Wave 2. We're doing that on October 29th at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So if you want to join us for that, we're going to talk about all the new Wave 2 features that are either available or are coming in short order. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But we do a lot of talk about what all these new features are, all of the cool new things, and especially, there's a lot of Copilot and AI enablement that's coming up in finance and supply chain management. But how do you take advantage of those features? How do you actually use them in your environment? And today we wanted to just take a step back and talk about how you can go about enabling all these cool new features that are either available today or maybe coming in a future update. And I sped too far ahead, I apologize. So let's talk about some of the feature states. So whenever a new feature is released to D365, it's actually released through the feature management workspace. And that feature management workspace is going to hold all of our new features that are available to us in D365. And there are a couple of different feature states that you're going to see when you go into the feature management workspace. So you might see preview features. And actually, since I have created this slide previously, they have actually added an additional categorization of preview features. So there are preview features, and then there are production-ready preview features. So you can see that Microsoft is actually going through and trying to do more iterations of all of the features that are coming and that are available to us. Preview features are basically the Microsoft product teams, and there's a product team for finance, there's a product team for supply chain, Any of those product teams can decide that they initially want to start a feature as a preview feature. They don't necessarily need to, but as you can probably guess from the fact that there are additional categories of preview features, they are very heavily invested in allowing these preview features to be available to the general public. Preview features are not going to be enabled by default, and they are completely optional. Again, they are a preview. You will actually see a warning on those preview messages or on those preview features because they're not quite ready for prime time yet. Even the production-ready preview ones, they are very, very close, but they're maybe not quite ready for prime time yet. So that's how we get our preview features. We also have feature states for released features. These are features that are available. They are production ready. They are ready for prime time, but we're not necessarily going to turn them on yet. And the reason for that is we want to give customers, or Microsoft wants to give customers, a little bit of time to go out there and maybe have the ability to turn these on at their own leisure and explore what these features are. Any features that are updated from preview are going to keep their enablement status. So if you turn on a feature in the preview state, once it becomes a released feature, it will still be on. You don't have to go turn it back on again. And one of the good things to know here is features will remain in a release status, meaning they're still optional, for a minimum of 6 months before they move to the next stage. And that is fantastic because that gives us 6 months of working with this feature to decide if it's something that we want to utilize, or in the case of some features that are essentially replacement features, gives us time to make sure that they're going to work with our environment. Once a feature has transitioned from released, it's going to move to what's called on by default. Now, this is a tricky feature state that is important to kind of understand. These feature states, so ones that are on by default, are ones that have been in release state for at least 6 months. So at least a 6-month period of time has passed before they've become, or since they've become released, before they're moved to on by default. Any new features that are coming that are going to be on by default are going to be communicated in the What's New article for the releases. So you want to make sure that you're checking that to see if these are going to become on by default. Now, the thing to note with on by default features is it's exactly like it sounds. These features are going to be on by default, but you can still disable them. So while these features are going to be turned on in your environment, when you take that particular update, you can still disable these features. So if it's something that you're not quite ready for, you do still have the ability to disable these features. And again, with on by default features, I didn't really explicitly call it out in here, but it is still another 6-month window. So features will be on by default for a minimum of 6 months before they move to the final feature state. And that final feature state is mandatory. This is when a feature is enabled and you cannot disable it. There are some cases where you could potentially contact Microsoft and disable it if it's really messing with something in your environment. But the good news is a lot of these features are not things that they're net new adds. They're not necessarily things that Microsoft is changing. They're not necessarily things that might impact your existing extensions in your current environment. One thing to note, though, if a feature is identified as critical by the product team, so think of hot fixes or stability fixes or bug fixes, those types of things, if they're identified as critical by the product team, by exception, they can be introduced as mandatory, meaning they will skip released and they will skip on by default. So just to give you kind of a timeline of what these feature cycles look like, from preview to mandatory is actually a pretty good chunk of time here. So we can see here, let's just take this release wave, for example, since it's 2025 wave 2. any new features that are introduced as preview features during this release wave, so not necessarily features that are ready for prime time, but new preview features, are going to be released and going to be available to you through the feature management workspace. This preview window will last for a minimum of 6 months before a feature is deemed to be in released status. Once a feature hits release status, so you can see here, we're basically saying for 26 wave 2, or wave 1, sorry, 26 wave 1, this new feature, you know, it could be Joe's awesome feature or whatever feature is available out there. But Joe's awesome feature is now moved to release status in April of 2026 to coincide with the new 26 wave 1 release. After 6 months of being in a release status, it's going to change to on by default. So if you've enabled it already in release status, or even in preview status for that matter, you don't have to worry about anything. It's going to automatically keep that state. But if you have not enabled it, by the time on by default rolls around, that feature will be enabled on your next update. So if you take the October release for D365, for example, that new feature is going to be on by update, starting with 26 wave 2. So October of 2026, Joe's awesome feature is going to be on by default. You still have the ability to disable it. So if it's not something that you're ready for yet, you can still disable it. But it's important to note here, once it hits on by default, it is pretty much a 6-month window before it becomes mandatory. So you want to start testing it. You want to start actually taking advantage of those features before it becomes mandatory. Now, again, this is in 27 wave 1, so that's a full year and a half from now before it becomes a mandatory feature. But it is still something that is going to happen. It's something you need to be prepared for. So I think that's all for the content I have. Let's actually dig in and take a look at the feature management workspace if you've never actually seen it before. So I'm going to go back here for a second, and I'm going to go to my sandbox environment and just show you how to get to that feature management workspace. So from my D365 main menu here, you could potentially have this feature management workspace available to you right from the front page here. It's typically right up in the top area. But if you come over to the left-hand side and you go to the workspaces, you're going to be able to scroll down and find the feature management workspace within here. So you can see right here, I've got my feature management workspace. Now, when you come into the feature management workspace, you're going to see a list of all of the new features, and they're going to be filtered into one of 4 categories. So you can see all of the new features. These are features that have been added, I want to say, within the last 30 days. So you can see there are features that actually are getting added outside of the update cycle. This one was actually added on 9/1. And it's a preview feature for lean manufacturing for planning optimization. That one's actually really cool. Pretty excited to check that one out myself. I'll be enabling it shortly after this session. But you can see all of the new features that are available here. So once we actually get our October release on here, there'll probably actually be quite a few features that show up in this new box here. Now, we do have the ability to also see all of the features that are not enabled for our environment. Now, this is a great way to go in and see what are all of the features that are available to me that could potentially be enabled sometime in the near future. So I can go through here and I can get a look and you can see all of the feature states here. So all of my preview features, these are all preview features that are available to me here. If there's not a feature state, that's in the released feature state. So one thing to note here is it's not going to explicitly say that it's released. It's just going to not have a feature state. You also have our on by default feature state. So you'll see that here as well. This is a feature that is turned on by default. And this is this feature is kind of interesting, and you're going to see a few of these bugs that come up here every once in a while from Microsoft. As you can tell here, this is still a preview feature. So it's going to give me that warning that this is still a preview feature. And you'll notice that because I have not actually enabled it and it's not enabled, I haven't gone in and disabled it yet, but Microsoft has changed the feature state. And so it's a little bit confusing here. So you'll see some of those sometimes, but you'll just be able to know if it's in the not enabled and it says on by default, that's one that is not turned on. Now, you can see we also have our scheduled and our all, and we're going to talk about scheduling here in a minute, but let's just go to our all section here so you can see all of the new features that are available to us. Now, I talked earlier about the difference between a preview feature and a production-ready preview feature. You can see here, we do have some production-ready preview features available to us. For example, the account reconciliation agent. If you joined us last month for FNSCM in Focus and you're wondering how to get the account reconciliation agent enabled in your environment, this is how you do that. You would simply come in here, and if you don't have it enabled, so let's find one that I do not have enabled. We'll just go right above it. You'll see this button down here in the lower right-hand corner to enable this now. If you enable it now, it's going to turn on immediately. So just a word of caution, and especially in production environments, we always want to make sure we test first. But just know that if you enable this now, it will enable it right now for all of our users. There is the ability here to schedule when you want these features to be enabled. So you can come down here and you can click on schedule, and it's going to ask you what date do you want to actually enable this on. You can't choose down to the hour to the minute, but you can basically come in here and say, okay, next week I want to turn this feature on, so that you don't have to remember to come back. It'll just automatically be scheduled for you. And then once you schedule this feature, you'll actually see it in this scheduled tab here at the top. You can also see here, we do have some features that still can be disabled. So if there was something really wrong with one of these features and it wasn't a mandatory feature yet, I can come in here and I can disable this. So I can disable my account reconciliation agent if it was really causing a lot of problems or a lot of issues for my end users. Now, two other things that I wanted to point out here. One is all of these features actually have a pretty good description associated with it. So you can see here, this is basically telling us what this feature is going to do. So you don't need to go back and cross-reference the What's New document. You don't need to worry about getting any of that information together. You can just come in here and you can see a description of what this is going to do. You'll also notice that there is a status button here. The status icon is going to give us kind of a glimpse of what's going on with these particular features. So green check mark means that it's enabled, you're good to go. If it has this little warning button or this little warning icon, so the triangle with the exclamation point in there, it's going to have just a little warning about these features. And a lot of times you're going to see these on preview features, basically saying that this is a preview feature, that you understand the preview feature terms and conditions. So there's a link right here to your preview terms, basically just outlines that Microsoft isn't liable for you turning on preview features in your environment, all that kind of fun stuff. You may also see an error status. And an error status is basically going to tell you that it can't be enabled because of something wrong with your environment. A lot of times it's just missing a prerequisite. So when it comes to these agents, for example, you can't actually enable the account reconciliation agent until you have agent management and the immersive home enabled. So you have to enable these two features first before you can enable the account reconciliation agent feature. This one, for example, is telling us that you need to enable some security enhancements for the UK VAT integration feature. So you can see here that there are just some additional prerequisites that need to be enabled before you can see those. And one last thing I wanted to point out here is we do have a mandatory feature here. This is one of those exceptions that we talked about. So basically, Microsoft has decided that this was a critical feature that needed to be added to my environment. So you can see that the feature was added actually in June of 2025, but because it was a critical feature, they enabled it right away in June of 2025. So you will potentially see some of those that are critical features that were just turned on immediately when they were released into your environment. If I were to scroll all the way through here, I might be able to find some. For example, this was about a year ago when this became available to us and then became mandatory. This was actually probably another one of those critical features, but if you scrolled far enough down, you'd probably find some mandatory features that went through the full software lifecycle. You'll notice there is a comments box here. This comments box just gives you the ability, if you're working in a larger environment or with additional system administrators, you can make any comments. Joe turned this feature on this date. Anything that you want to kind of track from an auditability standpoint, you do have the ability to see who turned them on, but if you want to make any additional comments associated with them as well. And then finally, the last two things here, if you noticed up at the top, we do have an enable all button. So for those of you who really like to live on the edge and try all of the new things, you can enable all of the new features that are available to you. Even myself, who would normally do that, I don't like to necessarily encourage that, just because there might be some features that we're not quite ready for, but it is available to you if you want to do that. And then also, because some features are not actually wave dependent or release dependent, you can check for new features, and it will go out and it will see if there are any additional Microsoft features that are available to us that we can throw into our environment. So not necessarily restricted to any of the wave or any of the release details here. So with that, that is essentially the feature management workspace and how you can go about checking out all of the new features, especially as they're coming available to us here in the next couple weeks. So any questions on anything that we talked about today? And I see Bree threw in the registration link there for the Wave 2 release. So again, that is coming up here October 29th at 1 p.m. Central Time. All right. I'll give it just a minute here to see if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, with that, I want to thank you all for attending today. I'll stick around for a few more minutes, but thanks everyone for attending. And be sure to check us out next month, first Wednesday in November. We are going to be checking out the one of the agents we're going to be looking at, the Supplier Communications Agent. That's the one. So next month, we're going to talk about the Supplier Communications Agent, go through enabling that, and talk about some of the features that has. So make sure to join us next month, first Wednesday in November. All right. Thanks, everyone. And if you have any questions that you think about afterwards, feel free to reach out. Be happy to answer them for you.